All right, so we're going to get started here a little bit early. As Brian said, I am Dr. Jonathan Caudill. This is Tyler Tenbrink. I'll introduce a little bit more about me. I have a doctorate in education in various formats, but I've also worked in the nonprofit sector, and I've worked in public sector as well. Currently, I work in financial operations with the city of St. Petersburg. So I've got kind of a plethora of a career behind me, but one of my basic tenets and one thing that I love most is education. And I do talk about generational gap a lot in government settings as well as nonprofit settings. Tyler?
I am Tyler Tenbrink. I am not a doctor, so I am not as highly educated as he is. But I've been in the airline industry for about 21 years now, and I've run the gamut. So I've gone from ramp agent all the way to director of talent acquisition. I've done everything but pretty much turned a wrench on the aircraft. So it goes back and forth. I'm a graduate of K-State Polytechnic in Salina, Kansas, and I've been around for quite a while. So if you haven't seen me out and about, now you have me.
So today we are going to be talking about bridging the communication gap and speaking the language of today's aviation students. So we're equipping flight instructors, we're working with training managers, education professionals, and we're trying to figure out how to connect. Because at the end of the day, it's not the material that we're learning, it's the issue. It's how it's being conveyed and the messaging platform in which it's being conveyed. So that brings us to the purpose of this session. The core message, we don't have a student problem, we have a translation problem. Today's aviation students are capable, they're motivated, and they're ready to learn. We just speak a different language in how we present this learning material to them. So in this session, we'll equip you with practical, measurable, modern, and culturally aware ways that you can connect with your students. So the problem is frequency. Go figure. That was a pun. You're supposed to laugh. Ha, ha, ha. Thank you.
So today's students are learning everything through phones, right? Everything is right in the palm of their hand. How many of you were told when you were in school that, oh, you have to learn math because you're not going to always have a calculator in your back pocket, right?
No, they hadn't been invented.
All right, or that. You were still using the abacus, right? All right, got that. So now it's even worse. Now we can pull things out of our pockets. Heck, we can talk into our watches, and it will give you feedback automatically. So what we're looking for is we're looking to see that we learned on paper charts. Jonathan and I both did as pilots. And now we're seeing a lot of people that are learning just digitally, right either on the palm of their hand, on their computer screen, or any other myriad of ways that you could think of. But we were used to a stricter chain of command culture. And that's kind of going out the window. Not saying that it's a bad thing to have a chain of command, but it creates a fundamental communication mismatch. So what this disconnect creates for students, they look distracted, right? How many of you are always looking down at your phones? I can see a couple of people doing it right now, which I'm notorious for doing it too. I don't want to listen to everybody because I can usually find out the information quicker than what you're talking to me about, right? So, but we're actually accustomed to faster paced learning and visual learning environments. Someone speaking at me all day long is not as much fun as me typing things into my phone, finding out things for myself, learning it on my own. For instructors, they feel unheard. How many of you sit there and your students are texting away or doing whatever they're doing on their phones or on their computers, and you feel like they're not listening to you? How many of you feel like that? None of you? Because I don't believe that.
Have any of your instructors given that feedback to you? I see some heads nodding, yes.
All right. So they are saying that students don't listen or they're not serious. But in all reality, your delivery method is not matching what they're expecting. So we got to bring these two things together. And organizations, they're caught in the middle. You have people that want to modernize, but they face resistance from their either instructors or even their students. And then they have a deeply ingrained cultural expectation on how training should work. We need to realize that training needs to be adjusted.
Another interesting fact here, going back to the student line, we're specifically talking a lot about Gen Z right now. Remember, these are our COVID babies. So this is a group that culturally is very internal, very introverted. And so their learning was presented to them in that way. So these are methods that are natural to them, which may seem completely unnatural to us. So let's talk about the Gen Z stare.
Has anybody ever heard of the Gen Z stare? Anyone? I see 1, 2. All right. We're going to listen to this, and I'm going to ask you guys some questions afterwards if you've even experienced this, because I know I have, and I probably do it, and I'm not Gen Z, so it's just the way my face works.
Speaking of younger adults doing something serious, there's a new phenomenon that's taking over. It's called the Gen Z stare. Now, it looks like this. It's basically a blank stare with dead eyes and complete silence, often used in customer service jobs, or it could be a response to a parent asking something really annoying like, how's your room cleaning up going? Now, there's been some criticism of it, saying
That's good.
it's actually quite good, isn't it? I like that. Is Shervo there? We got Shervo? No, okay. I think, looking... That's actually... no, that's far too excited. I've seen it a lot in my house.
Oh, right. Well, it's a blank stare. It's just a blank vacant stare. It's the tilt of the head. Is it supposed to be aggressive?
Sometimes I get the sigh with it as well. So it's a couple of blinks and then... James, if you ask a stupid question.
Well, to go into bat for Gen Z, isn't this just all young kids? I feel like this was happening when I was younger. I feel like it's just a sort of standard response. I haven't really noticed it in my workplace all that much. Sherlo's doing it. That's brilliant, Sherlo. But so what's it about? Instead of, wouldn't you rather them do that than blow up or, you know, off at you? Or, is it because they don't understand the question?
No, I think they think that the question's too stupid.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's the inference.
I'll show you the bonus there, ready?
Yeah. So that's a little easier to read, because sometimes when when this is the 13 to 28-year-olds are in Gen Z, and when they give you the stare, I spend a lot of time going, are you happy? Are you sad? What's happening? I could read yours.
Yeah. What was mine saying? Not on TV.
Shut up.
Not on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Though, seriously.
Yeah. They've got so much to worry about.
They actually do.
Who am I going to vote for? In 4 years, that's what they're thinking about.
Luke, James, thank you both.
There you go.
Anyone seen the Gen Z stare? Look a little more familiar? You may not know it, but that's my husband right there, and I absolutely implore the Gen Z stare quite often, and so does he. Especially around the questions. Did you take the trash out? I get the Gen Z stare out of it.
And usually the eye roll that goes along with it.
And the sigh. All right, poll the audience. How do your students want to be connected?
Text? Email? Don't talk to me? In person? How about carrier pigeon? I mean, I think we saw abacus, so carrier pigeon goes right in line, right?
What do we think? How many people think texting? A good amount. What about email?
I've got about 4,000 emails in my inbox right now.
Phone
Time
calls.
to just hit delete.
What about phone calls?
That is coming back. You're right. Sometimes I have to just pick up the phone because I can't get my point across any other way. But then no one answers. So
let's look at the statistics. This is statistics done from Panomia. It's a leading in-person tech teaching group that has done a lot of research and focus into Gen Z. And so this is what their statistics show in terms of how Gen Z students actually want to be connected.
So 68% want to be connected via text. Not abnormal, right? It's either text or a messaging app. So whether you're using Teams, WhatsApp, Slack, all of those things, it's the primary means of communication. It's quick, it's easy, you can read it, you can save it for later. Email, 22%. That is coming down. And I think a lot of the reason is because the vast majority of my emails, regardless if it's personal or work, is all spam. That's all I get is spam this, spam that. And now it's becoming even more prevalent in text messages and phone calls too. So people are just inundated with communication, right? And then 10% prefer phone calls. However, I think you're right. I think it's coming back because no one has any idea what's real anymore. That's becoming a problem as well.
So this brings us to our core thesis. The aviation content doesn't need to change. It's just the delivery. So our job is to translate timeless airmanship into 21st century formats. It's the same standards, it's the same safety culture, we're just putting it into a new container. And that container, specifically for us, we're talking about lessons. How do we deliver lessons? We need to translate lessons into something new, something that actually connects with the next generation. So by repackaging, not replacing, we're able to achieve this. Let's look at the the Airman Certification Standards, and let's talk about how we can use those in their normal format, but we just repackage them just a little bit. So, as always, safety is non-negotiable. We're always going to be prevalent and conscious about that, but we do need to figure out how we're going to change how this is delivered. So let's talk about a varied teaching approach. The old way. Where are my younger pilots? What's the old way?
Just read it, right? Read it out of a textbook?
Yeah. You arrive, right? And you know you're doing something today. We pull out the manual, we pull out the textbook, we pull out the chart, we sit down, we talk. That's common. That's what we're doing. So I'm in person. Today we're going to talk and learn about what a TAF is. That's TAF, stands for Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. It's a weather product that provides...
Yeah, we're already out. I'm not
30 seconds,
anymore.
I'm gone. What's a different, varied way of doing this? So via Slack. This is a type of messaging tool. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's free, and you can actually set up channels for you directly to your students or you directly to your instructors as a business. There are paid variations for it, but I love it because it's just an easy way to connect. It's spam free, and it creates those open channels of communication where we can try new formats. So via Slack, flight instructor, you're flying tomorrow morning at 0900. Here's the TAF. Tell me if we're going or if we're canceling and why. And then provide them the TAF.
Here you go. Just, this is what we're doing. Figure it out and teach me how to do it. You're reversing it. You're changing the narrative.
Student is immediately engaged. It's real because it matters. And I got to figure it out. Okay? So how does this work? We're going to let them use the apps and tools that they are already connected into. But it is important. We are going to ask them what they're using because we want it to be a valued and trusted source. Not everything on the internet is true. So then this tech teaches and reinforces alongside you as the flight instructor what the underlying regulations are and why it matters. This is all done in partnership. So let's go into micro-learning, because essentially that's what we're doing. We're approaching this from a micro-learning perspective. All right, I need a volunteer who is well-versed with complex words. I'm going to pick you if you don't stand up.
Glenn.
Anyone. Glenn.
Glenn, right there. I know he can.
You ready? Can you give me the definition? Will you read the definition for me for micro-learning?
Microlearning is, all right. Microlearning is a pedagogical method, let's say it, get it right in a minute, that delivers discrete, narrowly focused learning units designed to target specific cognitive objectives within minimum temporal durations. It operates on principles of cognitive load theory, optimizing information retention through segmented instructions, design, and space repetition by leveraging digital modalities such as video capsules, interactive simulators, and adaptive assessments. Microlearning fosters...
All right. You're boring me. All right. Who all zoned out?
Thank you, Glenn.
I don't want to listen to that. I sure as heck didn't want to listen to that back then when I was in school. So
How many
Glenn,
people followed? Did you have enough breadcrumbs to get back to the beginning?
Yeah.
Right? So let's micro-learn the micro-learning. How about that?
Yep.
Let's micro-learn the micro-learning. So micro-learning is just breaking a lesson into a shorter, focused, digestible chunk. It's like learning one new thing at a time instead of sitting through an entire topic. It's easy to remember, and it's easy to use right away. So, aviation microlearning. Let's break it down. How can we use microlearning for weight and balance? Let's find a 5-minute clip on YouTube that takes students, we ask them to watch it before they come to their lesson. They can pick anyone. We can have a database of them and the ones that we like. We can send it to them as instructors. It's a 5-minute briefing. I guarantee you right before they walk in, they're going to sit in their car and they're going to go, crap, I should look at this. But it's 5 minutes. It's digestible. It's going to be fresh and quick right at the top of mind for them.
But they get it because they're getting the basics. You're not giving them the envelope. You're not getting all the nuances of it, but they're getting the theory, right? You want to just prime them for that lesson.
Right, because what are we going to do with it? We're going to take our judgment and experience as instructors, and we're going to partner it with what they've just learned. So they've taken the meat and potatoes. Now we're making it colorful to where it's a Michelin star restaurant.
Yep.
Right? All right, radio calls. Short audio clips can be presented to them with annotated examples where they can practice along with it so they can feel the cadence and rhythm of it. We'll talk about another version of this in a minute. What about airspace tours? Interactive videos where they can actually click into an airspace, be in it, look around at what airplanes are flying around in that area, decide how weather could implement those specific airspace. And then METAR TAF, we just talk about how to decode that. Step-by-step tutorials are a great way to do that. All of this small, under 5-minute, digestible chunks gives you the meat and potatoes. We supplement with instructor feedback and partnership. So let's look at an actual example of this. This is from TikTok. I have no idea what his name is. I just really like his video. It's a really kind of simple, honest, true. It's very low production quality. You can tell this is someone who actually just cares and is trying to put forth a quick lesson to make something easily digestible.
A stall is the rapid loss of lift and increase in drag when an aircraft's critical angle of attack is exceeded. And remember, an aircraft can stall at any airspeed, any attitude, and any power setting. It's caused by the disruption of smooth airflow along the surface of the wings. When an aircraft begins to increase its angle of attack and approach its critical angle of attack, which for most GA aircraft is between 18 to 20 degrees, we begin to have separation of airflow along the top of the upper surface of the wing on the trailing edge. We begin to have swirling and turbulent air in this separation area on the trailing edge of the wing. As the critical angle of attack is exceeded, this separation increases and the swirling and turbulent air covers the entire upper surface of the wing, resulting in an incredible loss of lift.
Easy, digestible, right? Quick video. I guarantee you this was made as someone's project as part of a schoolwork. Here's the fun thing. As schools, you can also request this. And then you have micro-learning to deliver to others as well. So you can also use your students to help build your base. So if you're wondering, like, where do I get started? How do I find this? Invest in your students. They can also give you the tools and materials you need to be successful with this. So let's go into an actual example around stalls, awareness, recognition, and recovery.
Is this mine or yours? This one's yours. Oh, okay. All right. The ACS, it's obviously going to be an overly complex version, right? Exhibits knowledge of the aerodynamic factors contributing a stall, including critical angle of attack, load factor, power settings, etc., etc., etc. All right, let's break that down a little bit, right? I don't want to read that whole ACS. It's always overly complicated. We learned that from Glenn over here. So now we have the simplified, relatable version. A stall happens when the wing stops lifting, not when the engine quits. Think of it like your Wi-Fi dropping when you overload your router. Too much angle, not enough flow. The goal is to recognize it early and reconnect the airflow by lowering the nose and smoothly adding power. Pretty cut and dry, right? Let's just simplify that down.
So, language matters. Using cultural references. So, you just saw Wi-Fi in that last one. That metaphor, that visualization of something is incredibly powerful when teaching. So, let's use another variation of that, a GPS. So, it's like your GPS rerouting you to avoid traffic, except in aviation, if you don't reroute, there's actual real-world consequences to it. So I can take something, I can visualize it, I can connect it to something that's modern and something they touch and use and see and know, and then I can talk about the importance of it at the same time. Strategic humor. Just because we're educators does not mean we can not be funny. All right? Strategic humor has its place. Using light aviation memes or jokes lower defenses and create memorable learning moments, especially when you're dealing with generational gaps. Finding opportunities to connect with a younger or older generation is key. Humor is a great bridge for that. Speaking of bridge, it is important that we do not use any of this for shaming. Respectful jokes about steam gauges and glass cockpits acknowledge both generations without making someone feel obsolete or superior. So, let's try this. I asked you a minute ago to we're going to break into groups, all right? So I need someone to just be a writer and take down. I'm going to let you volunteer yourself, or you can volunteer somebody in your team, all right? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a classic ground lesson topic, airspace. And we're going to take the first paragraph out of a textbook. I will not tell you which one, but Tyler will read it for us. And then as a group, I want you to try to translate it, 3 or 4 sentences, using some visualization, imagery, using some strategic humor if you can come up with it, and just deliver your own version of this first paragraph. All right, here's the paragraph, and then I'll give you some time to break up.
Chapter 14, Airspace. Understanding the structure of the national airspace system is essential for every pilot. The airspace over the United States is divided into several classes, each designated to provide an appropriate level of safety, traffic management, and air traffic control service. These classifications, Class A, B, C, D, E, and G, define where and how aircraft may operate, what equipment and communication requirements apply, and the weather minimums that must be met. A pilot's ability to identify and comply with these airspace rules ensure the safe and efficient integration with other aircraft and ATC operations.
Who's excited about airspace? Yes, all right. You have 5 minutes. Get together in your groups. You can stand up, you can move around. This is a great chance to stretch your legs, my friends. So please, find someone just take those notes. We've got 5 minutes. I'll give you up-to-date timing about halfway through. All right, wherever you are, go ahead and wrap up. Go ahead and wrap up. If you were the writer, if you're willing to come and read what you wrote, that would be great. If you are deathly afraid of that, if you could pick a volunteer. Who's doing it? All right, group 3 is down. I got group 3. I need 1, 2, and 4. Brian, let's go. You were voluntold. Group 2. Yes, what's your name? Karen. All right. Shandell. All right, there's 1. All right. How about this? I won't make you go first.
Yep.
You sure can.
I want to get over with.
All right.
You do have paper.
Here we go.
Okay,
She's
ours is
written
really
it.
short. We just said a way to categorize the air and fly in a safe and separated manner.
I love it.
Easy.
I love it. Thank you.
Are you sure?
We're going to build on that. So, why do we care about different airspace? Safety, that's the umbrella. What do we care? What are we worried about? Risk. What kind of risks? We're worried about traffic and weather, right? So, what we need is, if we think about it, it's like levels in a video game. So these different airspace classifications have their different rules. So where are we going to lose these? Where are we going to study these rules? Okay, FA Wings courses, FASafety.gov, and of course, King School's courses are the best. All right?
Now, thank you. What I really love about that is it was still manifesting as it was coming, and that's the joy of this. It can always be evolving, it can always be coming and changing and adapting, because what we create today works today. It's not always going to work tomorrow, because there's going to be something new, something different, something that's going to change it again. So always think of it as something that's ever growing and changing. All right, third one. Thank you.
So, kind of touching on what you guys were hitting on earlier, half of our group started talking about driving, and then the young kids told them that teenagers don't want to learn to drive anymore. I don't know if you guys know that. Having a driver's license, not cool. So half of our group started talking about, oh, we can relate it to like driving, and so we wrote that as like potentially talking about special use airspace and having to pay a toll, or you can't just drive on a military base, or like you might have to pay to go into a parking garage. But then we were all like, our kids don't want to drive anymore, so they might
That's
not
true.
use that. So we kind of broke it down into driving. We talked about high school. You have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. They all have different, like the juniors and seniors get to go to prom, and the freshmen and sophomores don't. So you could talk like that. But the way that my boss Bob taught airspace once, and I never had to learn it ever again after that, was with the fish tank method. So most kids can envision a fish tank, even telling them it's like riding a bike. Kids these days, a lot of them never learn to ride a bike, but most of them have seen a fish tank before. So you get your fish tank and you put some gravel on the bottom of the fish tank. Fish tanks usually have little rocks on the bottom. Throw some toys in for the fish, and got a Bravo toy and a Delta toy and a Charlie toy, and then you pour water in your fish tank so you can put your fishies in there. But when you pour water, it doesn't just sit on top of the toys, it goes all the way down to the bottom, and then you leave a little bit of air on the top so you have space to feed them and scoop them out, and that's your class A. So you have Golf, Bravo, Delta, Charlie, Echo, and air on the top for class A. And I have never once had to re-explain airspace after learning that method of teaching, because most people, that's very, very simple. So
I love that. Brilliant.
Speaking of a upcoming micro-learning TikTok video, right
Fish
there,
tanks.
fish tank airspace.
I'm here for this.
All right, and from the almighty team over here. So every pilot has to know the airspace system. It's basically how the sky is organized so that we don't run into each other up there. The U.S. sky is split into zones called classes. These classes are A, B, C, D, E, and G. Everyone has to know the rules within these. They tell you where you can fly, what gear you need, when to talk to ATC, and even what weather is needed to fly in. Following these rules keeps the skies safe and helps pilots and controllers work together smoothly.
Perfect. What did you use for that? Perfect.
Bingo. So
Use the
Brian
tools.
Brian stole a little bit of our thunder here. So true, but it was more relatable. I loved it. That's true. All right. So Brian kind of jumped to the point here in what Tyler and I did. So while you were doing that, Tyler and I also rewrote our own, but we used a resource. We used AI. And we're going to talk about AI in just a second. So what I did is I used my phone. I opened up my app. I took a screenshot or a picture of the question. And then my prompt was rewrite for a more easily digestible, modern, Gen Z relatable paragraph. Here's what I got. The National Airspace System, NAS, is basically the roadmap for the sky. Every pilot needs to know where they can fly, what rules apply, and who to talk to. The U.S. airspace is split into different classes, A through G, each defining altitude limits, equipment requirements, and communication expectations. And that was it. Quick, simple. Tyler, you got a different one. What did you use? He used a different AI tool than I did.
I use Claude. It's a little bit different, but my prompt was make this into a micro learning snip. It should use humor, but professional, and I'm talking to CFIs of multiple generations, including John and Martha King of King Schools. So, I'm not going to bore you with all of it, but it's actually pretty good. It ended up being, I had narrowed it down to about 30 seconds, but the best part of this, let's see here, where to go. All right. Every flight decision you make or teach a student to make involves knowing which slice of cake you're in and what rules apply there. Even Martha King still double checks her charts because understanding airspace isn't about memorization, it's about application and keeping everyone safely separated. There we go,
Yes.
right? I couldn't have said it better myself, right?
The big takeaway here is we worked in groups and we showed the power of combined knowledge, but did any of you feel like, okay, how do I make this relatable? Because I do not have a shared experience with Gen Z. How many people felt that? Anyone? It's okay to feel that. It's okay to acknowledge that. Yep. So this is an opportunity to leverage tools alongside of what you do. It's important to also check those tools. AI is not perfect by any means. And I'm sure if you are in the world of education, you have seen some wonderfully written AI presentations and term papers, etc. I know I have. So it's quite fun. I actually will go in, and anytime I would assign an assignment, it would look just like this, and the text would be in black. And then right at the very end, after ATC operations, I would put in white text, do not use AI, or another little prompt. And so they would copy it all, they'd paste it in there, and I'd find it. I would find that they used AI, because AI will see that where they won't. It was my quick little reference to catch them. They've gotten smarter now. But
They have.
the basic piece here is use your tools. You don't have to be the end-all, say-all of every resource. You can leverage your tools in that. Tyler and I will openly admit there are aspects of our presentation today, specifically the drawings, that are AI generated for us. Instead of going out and hunting for pictures or worrying about copyright, I'll have AI do some doodles for us in our presentation. So we leverage the powers that we have to be able to get the results that we're looking for and how we want to meet our audience today. So micro-learning stalls. Let's go back to that video a little bit. How do we take it just a little bit further? So micro-learning translation ideas. Here's what you can do. You just saw the 1-minute video. There's another one that talks about a surfboard and the water moving on the surfboard. It pitches up, the surfboard breaks away into the current. So it works very similar to when describing airflow. You can use GIFs or animations that show critical angle of attack and what happens. You can use quick quiz cards, flashcards, memory hooks. Stalls are about angle, not airspeed. Everybody, stalls are about?
Angle, not airspeed.
Right. Memory hooks are very precious in the world of teaching. And we also can do real scenarios and scenario reels. 2 different words, right? Real scenarios and scenario reels. You can use those as teaching tools and elements. So, the human factor. Why don't we do this already? Or to its fullest extent. Technology has always made people nervous. When light bulbs were invented, people feared they would cause blindness. I can tell you it's a real cause at the moment for me. Anyone remember Downton Abbey, Maggie Smith walking in and, ooh, what is this light above me when they installed the power? Or how many remember the one where she's on the phone and she says, is this an instrument of communication or torture? Technology has always been resisted. Automobiles, when they arrived, critics said, it's anything over 20 miles an hour will be fatal. It'll never happen. It'll never go anywhere. And of course, even today, some instructors will side-eye the use of AI as debriefing tools or virtual reality as a tool to help in education. This is just human nature. So, what does resistance really mean? It's the fear of looking incompetent. Veteran instructors don't want to look incompetent. We want to be the source of truth. We want to be the one who knows it all. Step 1 is admitting we don't. Step 2 is working alongside a student and understanding that there's new ways to present information and to connect with them. So, how can we do that? We don't want that tech savvy 22-year-old teaching us how to use that app. We're going to talk about, Tyler's going to talk about in just a second, a way to reverse mentorship and walk through that. Pride in the way I learned. How many people loved the way they were taught something? I loved. Nobody's ever loved learning something from someone. No one's had a mentor before, a teacher they've always loved, right? Yeah, I remember my instrument rating. Best man I've ever met in my life. Immediately connected to me, was 40 years older than me, but immediately connected with me and brought it to my level. I will never forget him at all. But there's pride in the way that we learn. I used plot. What did I call it? A plotter? And you were like, no, it's a whiz wheel. Get it right.
Two different things, but
I was like, I've never heard of whiz wheel, but okay. I learned from paper and a whiz wheel, and I turned out just fine. This isn't stubbornness. It's a proven success story, and they're emotionally entangled with that. So we have to meet instructors where they are as well and encourage them to stay connected to that. This is where experience and judgment matters, not the material. The material is the material. It's the meat and potatoes. That's what we want them to learn. That supplementation, that real life, that's the judgment. That's the experience that you bring as an instructor. And then real budget pressures. If you're running a flight school, this is a real conversation. It sounds nice, but who's going to pay for all the VR, the app subscriptions, and the staff training? Absolutely valid concerns in that. The key here is we don't villainize. We collaborate. We involve early. We have the conversations with staff about, hey, where do you find gaps? How can we fill those gaps with something else? Another tool. Show the safety is the key component here and how it uplifts and gives stronger results in safety. Frame that tool and enhancing that. And then provide support. Offer training. Be patient. A judgment-free place where we can come together and connect. So reverse mentorship, Tyler.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. So basically what reverse mentorship is, and this is something I do with my team, is we have generations that were taught a certain way that may not know about technology or don't know enough about technology, and now you have tech-savvy younger people, or even older people, just doesn't matter, it just depends on the skill, that know something that someone else doesn't. So you would think that the instructor is going to lead the student. Well, this time you turn that around. You use the student to teach the instructor. And what that is basically, let's say AI, for example. That's, generative AI is a big thing right now. I've gone out of my way to make sure I understand it and how to use it ethically, and to make sure that in talent acquisition or in air carrier operations, scheduling, anything that I do and use AI, you want to make sure it's done ethically, you want to make sure it's done right, and you want to make sure you're prompting it correctly, or you're going to get various answers. So what you want to do is, let's say you want to know more about AI, but you don't know anything about it, but I know things, right? Well, you may have been my mentor. Let's say you were my boss for 20 years. I can turn around and be your reverse mentor. If you have the guts to ask that question, hey, can you teach me a little bit more about this piece? You're opening the door to so many new things, and it's going to be easier for you to understand because you already have that relationship with that person. So I would implore you, if you are wanting to learn about generative AI or any sort of new technology that the kids are using, go back to your work, go back to your place of business, go back home and ask your kids. Have them reverse mentor you in technology. That is an easy way to connect. It's an easy way to understand. And then you won't feel so dumb asking questions. Because if you're sitting here in this room and you ask a question about AI when you think everybody already knows about it, no one does know about it because we are not even sure what it's capable of and to its full extent yet. And B, everybody's in the same boat. We're all the same level right now. So don't ever feel dumb for asking those questions. But if you want to go home and learn more about it, ask someone that knows. It's just that simple. So, tech that actually helps and how to keep it professional. Primary means of communication. Who uses WhatsApp or Slack or Teams? Anything like that. All right. So, primary method, right? Everybody knows, we saw, they like to use text, right? The nice thing about text or messaging apps is you can go back and review it. You can look at it and go back to it later and answer it if you decide to. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But you want to also, it allows you to keep boundaries set. You need to set those because you're going to end up looking at your text messages or your Slack or your Teams messages until you're asleep at midnight. And it could go on and on and on. Those are things where do not disturb comes into play, all the technology that stops that. Like, I have to make sure that's set up. And you want to make sure you keep separate accounts. You don't want your work to be mixed with your personal life. And understanding that a lot of us do that. Like, I carry one phone. It has both my personal and my work stuff on it. It's just the way it is because I don't want to carry two phones. However, I have it set to where at 6 o'clock at night, if it's not an emergency or a priority, then it just doesn't go off. I have certain people set that if they reach out to me, they know my boundaries, and they only know that they can text me at a certain time. Same thing with being supportive. So you want to use social media as an extension. If you are searching around, you're laying in bed going, oh, this is a great reel about airspace. Found it. Go ahead and post it to your Slack board or go ahead and post it to your messaging board. You're able to utilize that to help with micro-learning. You're able for people to relate to that. And sometimes it's easier for people to understand what you're talking about versus just standing up here and chatting at them. They're able to look at social media, which they're already scrolling through anyway, because we all do that. We all doom scroll in the middle of the night. That's what I do, at least. And I get yelled at. But it's one of those things where you want to take a look at. And then also, you want to use it as a supplemental learning tool. You have the Sims, you have VR, you have e-learning, anything like that. It's excellent for preloading material. So giving students the ability to look at material that you want them to see, but putting it into a form that they actually want to take a look at. It also allows you to teach them about scary scenarios, like let's say you have someone that is really not excited about stalls or spins. This allows them to take a look at it before they even get in the aircraft when they're going to experience something that is going to be slightly uncomfortable. This will allow them to understand that feeling before it even gets down to them. Let them take a look at it. Now, there's some keys here. There is a non-negotiable line. You need to set that boundary real quick. There's no content for clout, no mocking students online, and no distracting devices during flight, right? So make sure your SOPs are set, your standards are set, what you want to be able to use, what technology your students can use, make sure it's vetted, and make sure it's built into your SOPs early, and it's taught at orientation. Set those expectations right up front.
The other sneaky side, and what I like to call the sneaky instructor or the sneaky teacher, when you send someone a reel, it becomes part of their algorithm. So as an instructor, if I'm sending out daily or after every lesson another reel to them or a couple of things for them to watch, guess what's going to start populating in their algorithm and their reels? More things about aviation. So they are going to, most likely knowingly, be seeing more content regurgitated over and over and over to them, which will only help support your cause as an instructor connecting back to them.
And it's absolutely true. If you think about that as a business owner or even just an educator in general, if you have specific sites that you want people to use, or if you have specific material you want people to use, if that company is posting reels like that and you're sharing them, that's going to automatically put all of that information into their algorithm. And I will tell you, my algorithm, it goes 15 different directions depending on the day. However, if you keep on feeding it the same thing over and over again on the certain topics, it's going to keep on showing up in those reels.
So let's talk about the cost. VR, AI, yes, it does come with a cost. Repackaging, relearning material, trying to connect to students in different ways, creating these platforms, time, power, that's also a resource that costs money. However, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. Phase it. Phase a rollout. It starts small. Like I said, Slack, there's a free app that's ready for you to use that you can set up. I have my students, I have my board, and I have my ways and means of communication that is work. It is separated from everything else, and it's just there. So that's a quick, easy way, step one of connecting. Doesn't cost me a thing. However, I may then decide to pull up something that's a little bit stronger. It does come with a cost, but it's got a better platform for students to be able to reach out, talk, even do video. Then maybe I go further. I actually buy an AI software that takes in real-time data and spits it back out, which we'll talk about in just a moment. You can use shared resources, work with each other, have instructors work together, a collective bank of micro-learning videos, a collective bank of different AI solutions for varied things as it relates to aviation education. Trial periods, a lot of programs, they want you to try it for 90 days, 120 days, no cost, money back. Take advantage of it. Get a sandbox version and play in there and see if it fits. Get your instructors involved. Get your stakeholders involved. Get your students involved. Get feedback and find out if it's the right system for you.
But I'm going to interrupt you there. For the trial periods, you're going to see these pop up, right? If you're looking on your phone or if you're looking on your iPad or even on your computer, make sure you're prepared to start that trial. So what I hate when people do is what they'll get on and they're like, oh, this is great, I want to use it. They'll start the free trial, and then they realize that they're going on vacation for 3 weeks. Well, you've just wasted that entire free trial. Be prepared to be able to use that immediately. So research the app, ask questions, do your research before you implement that, and then have a good idea of what your plan is going forward.
Most importantly, you have got to track your ROI. You've got to find out if what you're doing works. You've got to talk, you've got to create surveys, you've got to involve instructors, and you've got to get that feedback. Is it creating faster check rides? Is it creating less fail rates? Is it creating more opportunities for students to be in the plane versus on the ground? That's building money for you as well. So track it. It's a big piece of the pie.
And of course, you can't talk to me without talking about mental health. So don't forget about the pilot's brain. Mental health and belonging is key here. So modernizing training without addressing mental health is like teaching an emergency procedure without ignoring pre-flight inspections. It's incomplete and dangerous. So why it matters in flight training. Students talk about it. How many of you have had open conversations or have heard open conversations about mental health in your schools or in your place of business? That's a good thing. Those things need to be talked about. And until you all start having those conversations with people, they're going to close up, right? Everybody's going to have stress. Everybody's going to have anxiety. If we ignore the topics in the training, we're going to look outdated and even worse, unsafe. Because what you want to do is to be able to recognize there's a problem. You want to be able to talk about it, and you want to help them make a decision whether they are safe to fly. We all know that you shouldn't be flying if you are not meeting your safe checklist, right? I'm safe. Are you? Well, if you need to have that, or if you need to have that conversation, you need to be able to talk about this not only with your students, but you need to talk about it with yourself. You shouldn't be afraid of it. People get anxious. People have anxiety. There's all sorts of fears out there. I mean, we just heard people don't want to drive anymore. People don't learn how to ride bikes. That's a whole thing. So there's a lot of different things that we need to learn, but again, it's important to have these conversations, and it starts with the people that are in charge. Aviation, unfortunately, still has a stigma. How many of us were taught to just keep our mouths shut if something was wrong? A lot of us. I'm not even going to ask. You don't have to raise your hands because I was.
They'll take my wings.
Exactly. And that's what we always worry about is it's our livelihood. We know that if we have a problem, especially when it comes to mental health, we don't want to ask for help because we don't want to lose our jobs. We don't want the stigma that surrounds it, and we don't want to deal with it. So we just keep our heads buried and we don't talk about it, and everything festers until it just explodes, and it ends terribly. And I could go over hundreds of examples of it. We all know it's out there. However, we just need to prevent it. And by having open dialogue, that's the easiest way to do it. Have those conversations early, put it in your SOPs, start with orientation. Have those conversations early. And then you need to build it into your debriefs. So, normalize stress. What felt hard today? It's a pretty simple question, right? All right. Before jumping into what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? So, you're asking them how they felt, and then you're going into what they could improve upon. And then students who trust you will tell you when they don't understand. What you don't want, you do not want them to not tell you if they don't understand, because then you're just letting them go. and you think they understand, but they really don't, and you've not put them in a great situation. So the connection is students who trust you will communicate honestly. Students who do not will nod, fly away, and become a safety problem. Mental wellness isn't soft, it's foundational to flight safety. And we all need to understand that.
AI data. So we just showed a little bit about the power of AI data as it relates to creating a new lesson and how you can use that. So let's reframe AI instead of the thing that's new, the thing that's going to replace me, as something that we can use as an assistant, as a partner, as something that we are going to use to bring the full picture and the full circle around. And we'll give that to you in a scenario. So we also want to get veteran instructors on board. Why should they like it? Why would a veteran instructor want to do this? It catches those subtle patterns and those little human signals and things, and computates all of that data and gives you a summation of it, where you can be focused as an instructor on the larger ticket items, on the experience, on the judgment. And why students, here's the most important part, why students expect it. It's already a part of their life in every facet. And they are going to wonder why it is not part of their aviation education. So they are already expecting it. So AI is a training partner. Here's a real-world example. So we have a student pilot, Alex, is training towards a private pilot certificate. After each flight, their aircraft avionics system automatically uploads flight data into an AI-powered training assistant integrated with their flight school's LMS.
So the real-time data collection, and we're using this we're starting to use this at Piedmont. You're seeing this a lot in FOQA, so Flight Operations Quality Assurance. And what we do is we take data from the aircraft and we upload it into a computer software, and it actually maps out the flights, right? We can see what's gone wrong, we can see what's gone on in the flight, what they may have done right, what they may have done wrong. Let's say if they exceeded the they exceeded the flap extended, they oversped the flaps, let's just say that. We can see that, and then we can train on that. We can see patterns that are evolving. So what we're looking at is during the flight, the system is collecting flight parameters. So you're looking at bank angle, heading, anything you want, basically. And then your control inputs, your rudder coordination, your throttle, your control, etc. And then you're also looking at your GPS and your ADS-B data, right? What's your flight path? What are you doing? What's your altitude? Let's go with that. And then it's also picking up radio transcriptions. So it's teaching you about the dialogue that the students have had with ATC, with instructors, within the cockpit itself. So, and it's using natural language processing, which what you can see is NLP. It's also part of AI. And what it does, it creates a minute-by-minute performance record of each individual flight. And there is a few different processes that are working with this, but what you're doing is you're actually teaching what has gone right, what has gone wrong, and you can review it over and over again on the ground. It's great.
So this software then spits out a post-flight summation. So after landing, the AI assistant generates within seconds a daily training briefing that reads something like this. So training summary, lesson 7, slow fight and stalls. Highlights. You maintain heading within plus or minus 80 feet and plus or minus 5 degrees during slow flight. Great control stability. Areas to improve. Recovery technique from power on stalls showed slowed delayed pitch reduction by 2 seconds. Radio comms. Feedback was 95% accurate, but there was a hesitation in responding to the ATC instruction, maintain VFR at or below 2,000. And for situational awareness, you improved traffic pattern spacing compared to lesson 6. By itself, if I told you just this, is this a flight instructor? Is this a CFI? No. This is just a summation of data that then, as a CFI and instructor, I can go in and supplement more with experience and judgment. So it presents this data visually. There's often charts, heat maps, flight path deviation, and it's all summarized into simple language. So what do we do with it from there?
So we're going to be using this as coaching. We saw the 60-second video. We saw the, how to recognize a stall. We saw, what was it, the TikTok video where the angle of attack was exceeded and what it does to the airfoil, right? Then we could do interactive card decks, right? Those are quick views of V-speeds. Those are just flashcards, basically. Or AI chat quizzes. How many of you have ever chatted with a bot before? It's kind of like talking to ChatGPT. Well, those are actually even more prevalent than you are understanding. We actually have a few of them that in recruiting that are actually utilized, and it's not us talking. We've trained it how to talk to people like us. So people think they're talking to me or one of the recruiters. However, they're talking to a bot that have preloaded answers, and it's just chatting away with you. It's kind of wild, but it actually works pretty well. And then scenario replay, what that is literally a game. You can load this into a game software, and you can fly the same thing over and over again and practice. So all of these things are doing what we want it to do by the next lesson, right? We have AI already knows what objectives we set and what needs to be remediated. And then now we're going to reteach that and allowing the instructor to focus on the learning goals.
So the modern value of learning this way. So the example we gave you truly shows the partnership that you have. You have data, it's been reinterpreted, it's being partnered with an educator who is going to be your CFI or your instructor or your school, and then we take that. With that information, we put out the micro-learning, and the system will actually auto-generate micro-learning for that student if you have the right technology there. And then from there, they take it. It's something that they know, they see, it's practical, it feels natural. They come ready and better prepared to the next lesson for their next flight. So the bottom line is the AI takes the complex ACS standards and turns them into digestible, actionable, data-driven coaching components. And what Tyler and I did, we put up two data-driven softwares. These are for purchase. These are ones that you can sandbox, but these are the ones that actually will tie into the avionics that are on most aircraft and training aircraft. So there are others. These aren't our favorites. These are just the two most prevalent that are out there right now. More are coming and more will continue to come. So stay abreast to what those are. And then from the instructor in your pocket side, I have a preference for Pad Pilot Briefing Room. This is like having the CFI in your pocket. I have a random quick question, or I need a quick little video, or I need something just to refresh my head on this before I go in, kind of that flashcard approach. That's where this can be a benefit to you as well. So finally, we'll close with this. Closing the loop is feedback equals trust equals retention. So two-way debriefings, and I think Tyler with mental health hit this one the most. So end every flight with 3 elements. These are our recommendations, Tyler and I's recommendation to you. What I saw as the instructor, what you felt as the student, and what we'll do next. Aviation education is a partnership. It is trust. There's a way and a purpose of language here that is very key. So what did I see, what did you feel, and how are we going to combat and overcome and prepare for what's next? Versus, here's what you did wrong today, go and learn.
Yep.
2.
Small accountability tasks. And that is, again, our micro homework, right? So we'll watch this 5-minute video, check out this reel, mess with their algorithm a little bit just to keep them on their toes, and then come ready to teach me slow flight. What you're doing is you're flipping the script. You're having them teach you something instead of us just speaking to them. It's so much better for a student to learn that way, for them to understand something in a micro sense, and then go ahead and teach you how to do something you already know how to do, right? Maybe you'll learn something. Again, you're looking at part of that reverse mentoring as well. You may find out that they're using a program or something you had no idea was available, and you just knocked it out of the park. So being able to do that is going to be huge. You want to take the last one?
Sure. So anonymous feedback tools. All of this is great, but we also have to, again, capture that ROI. Part of ROI is getting feedback from every level. instructor, student, school ownership, faculty, any element of it, make sure you're going all the way up and down and you're getting feedback. We recommend the anonymous method because it does allow people to speak more freely. So we do suggest that. There are several tools out there that you can do for free. SurveyMonkey is an easy one. It limits you to 10 questions, but you can get some pretty good data out of 10 questions if you do it right. So definitely get that anonymous feedback. The mindset shift here, and this is really kind of hitting home the message. If you're not getting through to a student, it's not the student's failure. It's a communication mismatch. Own the responsibility to adapt. As the instructor, own the responsibility to adapt. So, once this cruise is over, we're not going to step on the scale because it's never a good idea. But we on Monday are going to walk into the office and we're going to think, okay, how can I apply this? So on Monday, modernize one lesson. You don't even have to do it. Let staff help you. Let a student do it as an assignment. But just start with one step, one modernization, one micro-learning piece.
And we're going to pick one channel. So move all non-sensitive communication to text or WhatsApp and post your available hours and stick to them. You're going to set that boundary and be done with it. I can't stress that enough. You need to set the boundaries.
Start with feelings. Mental health is important. Again, I started off the presentation talking about our Gen Z or our COVID babies. They are very much into their feelings. We need to make sure that we're meeting them where they are, and we have to be willing to talk about that. So begin debriefs with what was the hardest, and we talked about that. What I saw, how you felt, and what we're going to do about it.
And then we're going to have a cross-generation share. So what you would want to do, let's say you have a staff meeting. You're going to have one of your students that is technologically savvy or that is interested in a certain subject. Let's just say ChatGPT, right? Maybe someone doesn't know that from your side, but the student does. Have them teach what they've learned from it, and then use your people that are more seasoned or more educated or have just been around a lot longer to build on that, right? What you want to do is make sure you're giving a real world example, a go, no-go decision. That will help out bringing both of those things together.
And then finally, we want to document the win. Each win, document it. Make sure you're marking down that ROI. So remember, we're not lowering the bar. We're moving the message to where the students already are. So again, Jonathan, Tyler, thank you for your time today. We have maybe some time for questions, or if you want to catch us in and around, we'll be here all week. They trapped us on this boat for this thing, so we'll be here and we'll be around. But thank you for your time. Any questions or anything that we can answer for you?
Who's got some questions?
Oh, he's going to pick on us now. I see.
Oh, yeah, fair game.
Uh-huh.
The Cloud Ahoy, are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Well, I think ForeFlight actually bought it, but I didn't know if you considered it one of the AI ones or if it takes the data from your flight and compares it to the ACS as well. It's integrated in ForeFlight too. So
interesting. Yeah.
It's a good debrief.
Now I'm learning.
And Glenn brings up a good point here. It may surprise you, it may not surprise you, but most sim companies already is utilizing data to this extent. So we're teaching pilots, and then they go into these sims to get type ratings or for aircraft type rating specifically with ATP. They're already getting data. The difference is now as instructors, we're going to take data at the beginning level and implore that data early. And it's going to teach them and they will be more ready for that environment that they're already going to walk into as they elevate into their career. So yes, a lot of this technology is still emerging. The two that we presented are just two that mostly connect with Garmin and Avidyne. which are your primaries. They're not everything, but there are definitely more out there, and there are more coming. And most of the in-flight avionics teams are starting to work with these groups to put out more data and to put out better programs that connect to their avionics systems. It's only in their benefit to do that. You were asking why a Cirrus and a SR, or a Cirrus 20 and a 172 earlier. I mean, Cirrus, the data that comes out of a Cirrus is astronomical, even 15 years ago when I was learning in it as well. So, I mean, that was one of my reasons I chose Cirrus, because I got more data out of that than I ever would on a 182 or a 172. I had a 22. But that information was critical, and I loved that. So I gravitated as a student to that automatically.
And I learned in a 172, and I didn't have any of that data. So
we had 6 gauges, and we drove down to look at the water towers to figure out where we were. Right? All right. Next question. Yes.
It's not really a question, but it's an observation that I've noticed over the years, is that the student of today, they want to know why they need to know what you're teaching them.
Absolutely.
So when you start out and you're like, well, I'm going to show you how to overcome a stall, they're like, okay, what's a stall? And why do I need to know this? So maybe show them what a stall is and what can go wrong if you don't know how to overcome something like that. And I just noticed the more and more I talk to the student of today, they don't understand, well, why do I need to know this? So think about that before you go into the explanation of something. Tell them why they need to know what you're teaching them.
And one thing I've noticed is, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off because you just talk too much. No, I've noticed the same thing. And I've also realized that the experience that I have had, or you have had, or any of us in this room that have been flying for quite a while, we've all gotten ourselves into muddy situations, right? And we've also, obviously, are walking to talk about them, right? Yes, it's embarrassing. Yeah, we've made mistakes, but we learn from that mistake. I'm quite sure of it. I know I learned from mine. And if you're not sharing that, then that's how people are going to get into trouble. That's how we stop it. So have those conversations early. Be able to admit a failure. Be able to admit something you messed up on. That is going to speak volumes to your student. That's why you have to learn about a stall. This is why you are a VFR only pilot, because you don't know how to be in the clouds flying blind. You just can't do this. So there's a lot of sticky situations. Use those real world examples to your advantage. He doesn't want to walk that far.
Wayne Mayheck, Mark. I really want to compliment you on one of the modules you had on the 5-minute setup, because it was scenario based. And we're supposed to be all teaching for the last, I don't know how many decades, regarding scenarios. And all of our check rides, which I give a lot of across the country, are scenario based. So I think that's a wonderful addition, because I'm still seeing a lot of rote. I ask a question about, what do you do if you fly into icing? And I get rhyme, mixed, and clear.
What's that tell me? Not a whole lot, right?
Likely pass the written test. They get great scores on that, but when you come to apply it, you get the stare.
Yep. Oh, my Gen Z stare?
Yeah, that one. And the sigh. Big time on the
and
sigh.
the eye roll, probably.
But yeah, I really like that part.
Think about gaming. Gaming isn't about memorizing. I mean, you have to learn how to, up does what, A does what, B does what, but it's all scenario. It's a landscape that you're trying to overcome that requires skill development. That's why scenario-based training is used in gaming. So yeah, and that's another way that you can partner, again, AI and some of these micro-learning strategies. Put in the scenario-based moments there and talk about them.
And the risk management pieces too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
From a business perspective, absolutely.
Great job.
So you mentioned you did the Cirrus and the data they're collecting. Well, we flew 3 Cirruses for 7 years, and then the last 13 we've had 3 eclipses, and the new guy that owns it, Chris Harburn, that's all he's about is data. And it's not just about the airplane. It's about the flight and the flight characteristics and what it can do to make it. Are more manufacturers doing that these days, or is it kind of limited to flight schools?
So this is one where I'm going to defer to manufacturers who are actually in the room, because I don't have the answer to that. What I can tell you is where the education is going, and the focus of the education is around data. Is the more data, the better. And that's why aviation, avionics become more and more complex, because they provide more and more data outputs and data feedback to us as pilots as well as instructors. The key is just getting it past the student getting some data to using the data and leveraging it to better the student. So that's where we're going with it. But that's a great question. I'm not sure if Cirrus is here. I'm not sure what of our manufacturers are here, but you may also could speak to it in the professional world.
From the airline sense, when I first started with Piedmont, I was in the safety department. I was the manager of safety programs. And the aircraft that we were operating at the time was a Dash 8-100 and the Dash 8-300. The Dash 8-100 could output 12 parameters. Very basic parameters. That was it. And we could throw that into what we called aerobytes, and it would map out the flight for us. It would give us the information, basic information. It was literally nothing. A lot of the aircraft that you were flying were 10 times technologically advanced than what this is. When we transitioned over to the 145, its parameters that would report out was up to 144 parameters. So there are so many more data points that it can bring into. We could show animations. It would give us all of the information we needed from the engine, on top of the flight controls, what the pilots were doing, all the inputs that you can think of. And that just kind of going from Microsoft DOS to maybe Windows 98, and then now going into the 175, there are over 500 parameters that the aircraft can report back. So these are incrementally more advanced aircraft, and I would expect that either the avionics or the aircraft manufacturers, they're starting to see the same thing. Usually GA sees the technology before it's put into commercial use.
So, just a quick response to the manufacturers. We're comparing a Cirrus to a 1954 Cessna. They have the exact same technology when it comes to, they're all G1000 packages. We have G1000 airplane in our fleet as well. And we can get all the data, the same data you can get from a Cirrus. We actually have a program called FlightStow, which is completely free. I recommend you look into that. We use it as our FOCO program. We can set parameters. It alerts us when an airplane exceeds a limitation.
Yep.
We've actually done preventive maintenance to the point that we have actually pulled an engine from service because of data coming from our FOCO program. So we saw high EGTs on a cylinder. We looked into it. The mechanics couldn't see anything. Finally, we looked in with boroscope the cylinder, and we found that the valves was not opening. We pulled the cylinder off, and then eventually that led to pulling the engine off from service. All this came from a high EGT sensor that was coming up from our flight data. So it's called FlightStow. It's free. They're still developing it. Yeah, Fly STO. But it's very, very advanced. I don't know to what level they're developing it, but there's really good data available to you. You can see an instrument approach with the weather overlay of what that weather was for that day, what the ceilings were, where the winds, where other aircraft traffic was. We've had airplanes get close to our airplanes where we send it to another flight school. Hey, this is your airplane. This is the tail number of it. This is how close it got.
Wow.
They weren't on the radio, whatever it is. There's a lot of data available and can prevent an accident.
Are you guys using that to teach as well? You're pulling the information off the aircraft?
So it's kind of like the airlines, right? So you don't want to share your flight, your FOCO data to the entire industry, and then the news get a hold of it and make a whole thing about it.
Make a whole thing out of it? Yeah.
So it's very hard. You can share it, but we're still have a bottleneck of getting it to the student right after the flight. We have it on that it automatically, as the airplane lands, it puts it through a cellular on the website, so it's available there right away. But that debrief will require somebody to go in there, share the link to the student, and then go from there. So
which makes sense. Yeah, the Dash 8, we had to pull a card out of it, and it was one of the old school cards that were this big. So
yeah, some of our airplanes have that, and the cool thing about FlightStow is that even if your airplanes don't have that tech, you can use ADS-B data, so you can actually import ADS-B data into it, and it'll still analyze it as best as it can with that information.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that.
FlightStow really quick.
That's awesome.
We also use FlyStow at CAU, and we actually have all of our planes equipped with AirSync so that immediately after each flight, it automatically uploads the data, so there's no card pulling or anything like that involved. It's happening automatically.
See, it's already in existence. It's already there.
Now, what are you guys using that data for? I know I heard from you. I get what you're using it for. Are you guys using it for anything?
Same thing as you. We're hoping to get it layered down into our stage checkers at least, that they can start to analyze it and use it in more of a teaching mode. But right now it's mostly for our safety staff.
Which makes sense. I mean, FOQA is FOQA. That's where it all started. So why not? But yeah, if you can use it as a teaching tool, I think it would be, I wish I could have learned that way as well, seeing what I did wrong visually versus being told.
Taking it down even one more step, in terms of the ADSB data, my flight school, or my location of our flight school, has 0 G1000s. So ours, the only way that I've ever been able to pull it, which I didn't even know those programs existed, is ADSB through 4Flight, which the first gentleman kind of very briefly touched on. And that's very attainable to probably every single person in this room that uses 4Flight. But 4Flight does not release, in my personal opinion, 4Flight did not publicize or release it as a big thing. So you actually, if you log into 4Flight Web on a computer-based program, not on your iPad or your phone, it will score your flight identically. You don't have to prompt it to do it. You don't have to set parameters. You don't have to do anything. I can go in and check. I can see all my flights every single time I've connected 4Flight through ADSB, and it'll show me what days I did approaches. It knows what approaches are. It shows me what days I did maneuvers. It knows the difference between maneuvers. It knows landings, and it can tell you how far off of your glide slope you got, how far off of a localizer. It will tell you, it'll bring up ACS parameters for, you can go out, take off, fly a steep turn, and come back, and it'll know that you did a steep turn, and it will score you red, yellow, or green with a numerical based system, and basically tell you had a good flight, an okay flight, or a bad flight. So a lot of it is very, very rare that people actually know what I'm talking about, but 4Flight Web, it's really, really cool. It's fun to show the students, like you talked about, those Gen Z kids, of, look, this is your circle, and it's not me that's saying you did bad, it's the computer that's saying you did bad. You scored a 76. I was in low level wind shear the other day on an approach, and it was telling me I only did okay because I got below the speed for the airplane that I was in. So, and I know a lot of you are like, oh, swimming in circles right now with information, but pretty much everyone in this room probably has 4Flight. So log in, click around, or I'll be your reverse mentor. And
there you
I'll
go.
Show it to you.
I
can
see
show
a
it to you.
volunteer.
I have my laptop, so I can show you guys the last 5 flights I did. I have, approach flights and maneuvers, and like I said, you don't have to set anything. It just automatically does it for you. So.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
The things the students today have just amaze me.
I know. Well, it's kind of scary, though, that they don't trust what you're saying. They want a computer to tell us, right?
But,
yeah. Mine too.
It's a long way.
Just learn how to use it properly. They can't.
AI will never fill the buffet. AI will never be able to sense how the wind is moving with the clouds. AI will never replace judgment and experience. That's one thing it won't do. But
That's
it can
key.
partner with us.
Yep.
Yes, one last question, and then we'll I know everyone's like, break.
I can usually talk loud enough for everybody to hear me. It's not so much a question as it is going back to actually teaching the students. And I'm not a flight instructor. I'm Kirby and I run a flight school. But I will say that we need to make sure that we're teaching the students this is a new way, not a shortcut.
Correct.
Because what we do is dangerous. And if we've got the students that are just looking, and let's face it, everybody now we want everything immediately, this younger generation. They don't want to work for things that are supposed to be immediate in our lap. And these are things that can't be immediate and in your lap. You need to learn the lesson. I mean, even the 12-year-old, when he comes home and does his homework, which is required to be done on the computer at home, he has to show his work on a piece of paper, because he's not pulling up AI or the calculator to get it done. So we need to make sure what we do is tricky, and then we need to make sure that these students are actually learning the lesson, not pulling something up on AI to appease someone, that it actually means something.
I agree with that, and being able to understand that if you can control what they're using, so like ChatGPT, if you set parameters around that, my company allows us to use Copilot, and Copilot being Microsoft product, we can use it, but they can control it, right? We're not allowed to use ChatGPT or Claude or anything else outside with our business data, because there's protections involved with that. So if you are putting parameters around that, or if you're allowing it to happen, make sure you're controlling that and make sure that you have those procedures in place so students know they can't have that shortcut. Are they going to be able to stop? Are you going to be able to stop them from doing it? Probably not. However, as long as those controls are in place, it's protecting you and your business.
Outstanding. Thank you, Tyler and Jonathan. Let's give them a round of applause. And now you know why we brought them in after lunch. So, speaking of feedback, for those of you who can take 30 seconds, go into the app and please answer those questions for these guys during the session. We're going to take a break, and you guys can use the restroom, everything else. For those of you that haven't visited the King Schools booth, stop by and get your free hat. We are going ashore. There's sun out there. You can put on this thing, and you can give it away. I don't care. But there's plenty of them over there. Stop by. They're free, and they've got nice vendor logos on there and everything else. So we want to get those things out there. But there's snacks next door. There's vendors next door. Go to the restroom, everything else. We'll be back here in 30 minutes, 3:30 for the final session.